who signed legislation opening our border. I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that could want an open border, nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the auto-pen? This is a very serious thing. He didn't approve this stuff because when Joe Biden was with it, he would never have approved it. You take a look, he would have never approved open borders.
President Trump taking aim at former President Biden's allies, blaming them for the crisis at the southern border and claiming that they allegedly took advantage of his predecessor's cognitive impairment while in the White House. Let's bring in Marc Thiessen now, former speechwriter to George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Thank you very much for joining us here on this. Marc, I know you have a lot to say on it, so kick this off. So were they taking advantage of Biden when it came to the border?
Absolutely. I mean, and on a whole host of other things. I mean, look, one of the things we know now is that Joe Biden was incapable of a cover-up. He was the one with cognitive impairment. He was the one who was cognitively impaired. It was the people around him who lied to us about his condition. It's the people around him who weren't up front, who pushed him to run again, even though we now know that he was neither mentally nor physically capable of serving a second term as president. They still pushed him forward. Mm-hmm. And it's fair to ask who was running the country for the last 4 years. It clearly wasn't Joe Biden.
Yeah. What do you think about these calls from like people like Don Lemon, other left outlets, media outlets, Mark, where they're saying that, you know, forget about the Biden cover-up and focus on Trump. Forget about Biden, focus on Trump.
Well, this is the greatest political scandal of our lifetime. I mean, you had a president who, and by the way, the American people knew this even despite the cover-up. I mean, if you go back to 10 months in November 2021, almost half the country said that he was not mentally fit to be president after the Afghan withdrawal. And within a year before the debate, when everybody saw with their own two eyes that he was mentally unfit to be president, a year before the debate, 68% of Americans said that he was mentally unfit to be president. And yet they continued to push him forward. They continued to govern. They continued to tell us that he was doing mental backflips in the Oval Office and we just didn't see what he was like behind closed doors. It was all a lie. And so now they want to say, oh, move on. We're nothing to see here. Well, I want to see who was behind the cover-up inside the White House. And also, we got to hold the media to account. You know, the Jake Tappers of the world who are running around saying that this was Russian disinformation and that we were making fun of his stutter and lying about this, and then turn around and write a book profiting off of investigating the scandal that the cover-up that he helped perpetuate. There's a lot of people in the media who owe us mea culpas about this, who didn't cover this story at all.
I want to play this right now because we have seen this administration in some way come to the defense of Joe Biden because they're saying that it was the staffers that were driving policy. Here it is, J.D. Vance in a New York Times interview making that case today. Listen.
I also, to be candid, and this is going to sound like I'm beating up on him, I really don't know how much Joe Biden's late evolution on abortion was that thought out. I mean, far be it from me to defend Joe Biden, but I really think the more that we learn, the more that we see the policy of the Biden administration was driven much more by staff than it was by the elected president.
Thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, so his entire life, Joe Biden opposed taxpayer funding for abortion. And then to become president, he abandoned that position and became an advocate of. He always said, "I'm personally opposed to abortion, but I'm reluctantly allow it to happen." He became an advocate of taxpayer-funded abortion up till the moment of birth. That was never his policy for 40 years. There's so many areas where Joe Biden, he ran as this moderate centrist, reach across the aisle, and all the rest of it. He didn't govern as president like anything like his entire 40-year career before that. So why is that? It's either he had a sudden late life change of heart, or he either was just not mentally capable, or was just, his elder abuse, where they were pushing this guy to take positions and do things that really weren't consistent with what he believed in.
Yeah, consequences, Mark, or just like everything else in D.C.?
Well, quite frankly, I think they ought to have hearings into this, and they ought to call all these Biden officials up to explain all of this. You cannot have a president who is clearly mentally unfit and other people running the country on his behalf and not have any consequences. We need to know who is making these decisions. We need to know who is telling him to run for office again. I think we cannot let this go, and we have to hold the media accountable. The media perpetuated this, and that's why trust in the media. 7 in 10 Americans say that the media is pushing an agenda, and they're right.
Seems like we're only at the beginning of learning more about all of this and what was going on behind the scenes. Mark, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.